Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Discovering the Leader Within You, our PowerBrew for today. So my name is Jill Hermes, coming to you from Advantage C, which is a service of Carroll Community College. We're here with our monthly webinar, and we hope that you are all settled into your desk with a cup of coffee or wherever you are. And we've got a really great program for you this morning. So as we go through, I have my trusty colleague, Michelle Shepard. She's going to tell you a little bit about some things as well. So I'll hand it over to her here in a second. First of all, if you're not familiar with Advantage C, let me just kind of give you an overview. Many of you are. As you know, we're the kind of the business arm of the college as far as working with the business community. And we help businesses simply be their best in areas of training, consulting, facilitation, and assessment. And you've probably heard a variety of our instructors. Today, you're going to get to hear another instructor, and I think you will be so excited to hear John Kennedy. You may have heard him here in person when he spoke to a large group in the past year, and just always has high energy, great message that can be applied in so many different ways. Michelle, did you want to speak to the Management Development Training Program?
Sure, yes. So we have our Workforce Training Certificate for Management Development Training. It's for all managers, aspiring managers. This program started in February and actually can be completed in June. You can get your certificate in June, but you can actually start at any time. If you visit that website right there, you'll be able to see all the classes that you need. I believe there are 11 classes for that certificate. And if you are a business and you're inquiring about group training, please call us. Our number is there, 410-386-8095, or you can visit us at our website, advantage-c.com.
Thank you. So today, as I was saying, we have John Kennedy. He is an adjunct faculty member here at Carroll Community College. He's an international speaker, author, strategist. For nearly 2 decades, John Kennedy has inspired well over 250,000 audience members throughout North America, Europe, Australia, and the Caribbean. John's success was galvanized in the hospitality and tourism industry as a restaurant and hotel exec with a strong sense of teamwork, sales, and leadership. And when you hear him today, you're going to feel that energy, and he just is really gifted at getting people passionate about this topic because he's so passionate about it. One of the things I want you to keep in mind today as you're listening to John is that he is going to be partnering with Advantage C here at the college with a Leadership Academy series that will be an online opportunity. And you'll hear more about that, but I just want you to know that that is going to be something really amazing to take advantage of. So John, as we get started today, I'm going to hand the mic over to you. And I guess this is such an interesting topic of leadership. Everyone's talking about it today. And I'm wondering, is there something that the audience should be thinking, what's my one takeaway I should be focused on?
Thanks, Jill, and it's a great question. Oftentimes when I present at events throughout the world, the thought is, what's that one thing that I should pay attention to? And I guess the interest is, it's from your perspective. What is it that you're looking for that you would like to do to improve your leadership toolbox? So I'll bring a toolbox today. There'll be a lot of tools in it. And the one that you should take away is the one that seems to probably be the solution to the issue that you're up against in relationship to your challenges and opportunities in leadership. So be aware as we get into this particular program, 8, 10 different tools that I'll bring to bear, and pick the one that best suits your particular challenge or opportunity. And I believe it is now on to me, and I'm going to go ahead and say good morning to each of you, those that have a chance to be able to see me in person here on the video. There's a chance, let me see right there. There we go. So we're on. High tech, high touch is what we call it. My name is John Kennedy. I am fortunate, grateful, and blessed to be here this morning to bring to you the message of leadership. And there is a distinct difference between the role of a leader and the role of a manager. A manager, if you were to look at God giving me two hands, I'll make this a little simple. A manager is more about the process side of the equation, and a leader is more on the people side of the equation. And there are some that are born leaders. We've heard that term previously, and they lean more towards the element of connection and the element of personal touch and the element of charisma, if you will. But have you ever heard of the term a born manager? And to me, 50% of us are. We're born more to lean towards the task-oriented, process side, organizational part of our work. So that's not the thrust of today's work. Ours is going to be leaning into that more people side of the equation, that more leadership side of the equation. That was Ian. Ian just walked by. He's our support guy. I feel like we're on a late night talk show at this point. And there he is again. Wave hi to Ian. He's the support of what we're doing here. But ultimately, if you were to think about the one through line, the thing that connects all of us, the one quality or characteristic of a successful person, forget about manager or leader. Let's just talk about people skills. I know for a fact that it's the aspect of attitude. Each morning when I wake up, there's a certain set routine that I do to allow myself to have the best attitude for that day. I don't rely upon anyone but myself to make sure that I am growing what I feed. And if I want to feed myself anxiety or fear or concern or worry, then I'm probably going to grow that. And what I want to grow is attitude, a positive outlook, an opportunity to make an impact on folks. So I get up and I take a walk in the morning. I have a bite to eat for breakfast. I get on my knees and say my prayers, and I connect with the people that I love to tell them that I love them. Those four things that I do each and every day allow me to be a better person, and we could all agree that better people make better leaders. So there's really no misconnection to that. Let's go a little further, though. As you see on your screen, the importance of attitude. It says, the longer I live, the more I realize the importance of attitude on my life. Attitude to me is more important than the past, than education, than money, than circumstances, than failures, than successes, than what other people think or say or even do. It's more important than appearance, giftedness, or skill. It'll make or break a company, a church, a home. The remarkable thing is that we have a choice every day regarding the attitude that we will embrace for that day. I cannot change the past. I can't change the fact that people act in a certain way. I certainly can't change the inevitable. We say that in a different way. Local here to Carroll County, there is a septic company, and their website is www.poophappens.com. You might see them driving around the roads here, and that to me is, I can't change the inevitable, www.poophappens.com. The only thing that I can do is play on the one string that I have, and that is my attitude. It goes on to say that I am convinced that life is 10% what happens to me, and then it's 90% how I react to it. And so it is with you. We are in charge of our attitudes. So when we look at the foundation of leadership, and when we look at the cornerstones of leadership, we have to ensure that we're considering the importance of attitude. So the question posed earlier by Jill, what's the one thing that somebody would want to take away? Hey, there's a real good start. What do you do each day to embrace that day with an opportunity of attitude? How do you set the speed limit in your workplace? If you are indeed someone of influence, and that for the most part is a great term to use in qualifying leadership, that if I am of somebody of influence within the organization, whichever is online today to be able to view that, how do I take that element of attitude, and how do I drive the speed limit to be better than where it currently is? Meaning that if you do 45 miles an hour coming into work, everybody else that you are a leader of will probably do 40. If you do 50 miles an hour coming into work, well, okay, there's an improvement, but everybody's still going to be doing 45. They follow what the leader does, and if the leader has a poor attitude, it's certainly going to impact that as well. So that's the first tool in your toolbox in relationship to leadership. Now let's move to the next aspect of leadership, And we talk about it again with those two concepts. One on the left is more transactional, and that's more the manager side of the equation. And then as we dig deeper into the element of leadership, we want to talk about transformational leadership. So transactional has more to do with a manager discussing or saying or talking about the input. Here's what we need to do. Here's how we need to do it. And what we're going to get into in just a little bit is the vital importance of the question why. There's a great book that's been out for quite some time called Start With Why. Simon Sinek wrote it. I've read it a couple times and teach some of the concepts throughout the world. But starting with why allows somebody to not only think about the input, but they start to think about the outcome. Why are we doing this? What does success look like at the end? And how do I transform my people to be able to get that outcome that's expected? So again, back to the two hands that we discussed, transactional managers, more logic makes people think. They deal with logic. However, leaders are more involved in the emotion. So thinking versus doing. Again, you're going to hear me talk about these two-hand concepts throughout the course of the day this morning. So managers use logic to make people think about doing something, and thinking about doing something is not as important as the emotion connected to having people actually act upon it. The old adage, 4 frogs sat on a log. One of them decided to jump in. How many frogs are left? 4. Just the fact that somebody decided to jump in doesn't mean they did it. The folks that have leadership tie in emotion and have not only thinking, but acting to be able to commit to something, that change, that transformation. Again, that goes back to that term influence that we talked about before. Managers good at focusing what to say. Leaders are more focused on what to do. Managers change people's behavior. Leaders change people's minds, meaning that they look at the situation in a completely transformationally different way. As an example, managers oftentimes utilize policy, procedures, and sometimes fear to be able to change people. And if you are a parent and you have kids, it's not uncommon to use those tactics to be able to have change occur. But we know that behavioral change only lasts a certain period of time. In order to have transformative change, there has to be a mindset difference, an ability for somebody to go, I now understand why we're doing this, not just the how and the what. So as we finish up here on this particular topic of leaders and managers, on the management side, they're focused more on the how, and leaders are more focused on the why. So start with why. Why, if I am a leader or someone of influence in either an emerging or existing leadership role, why is what we're about to accomplish or set out to accomplish important to the mission or the vision or the customer experience? Why are we doing this? And when an employee, when a team member, when a member of your church or whatever influence or circle that you have that you lead, when they understand the why, they now open up their mind to a completely different set of tools that are to their advantage. In essence, on the management side, they become creative, and on the leadership side, they become innovative. And there's a distinct difference between creative and innovative. Innovative from a leadership side is doing something that's not been done before, trying something different that no one else has done, and to have the leadership ability to tie emotion to that and say, here's what I want you to do, here's how we're going to do it, but before we get to that, here's why. And when you open up or crack open the mind of an employee who's been doing something for quite some time and is able to then be part of the transition of opportunity, the innovative ideas are actually endless. They're amazing. Creative is building upon innovation. Innovation is doing something different. I could give you an example. The iPhone, if you thought about it, the iPhone was innovative. No one had had one of those before. It was a combination of a phone and a combination of your music and your ability to be able to connect with folks in email. It was, in essence, your entire life in the palm of your hand. That's pretty amazing. So after the iPhone, everybody went, man, I got to get one. And Steve Jobs was very good at tying to the emotion of it. How will you be able to connect with folks in readily and ease? So it was beyond, I want what he has, this iPhone. He was very good at creating a need. I'm going from, I want that to I need that. That's exceptional. I could give you a lot of different examples, but the iPhone became an iPhone 2, which is not innovative. At that point, it's now more transactional. The iPhone 2 became more creative. The iPhone 3, the iPhone 4. So the Apple model of leadership, transformation, and influence actually started to stymie. So they came up with the Mini and the iPad Mini, and then they became the watch, if you have one, the Apple Watch. Let me give you a funny story. My son Benjamin, Century High School grad, and certainly a great kid. Some of you might actually know Ben Kennedy. A few years back for Christmas was vying for an Apple product. Dad, yes, Ben, I was wondering, would it be okay if on my Christmas list I could put an Apple Watch? And for me, an Apple Watch is a fairly big investment. That's a lot of money for a kid at that age. But here's what he said. He said, you know what you can do? He showed me. You can put your fingers on the Apple Watch. It'll pick up the heartbeat. And if you have one and I have one, you could send me your heartbeat anywhere in the world, and I could, anytime where I am in school or doing what I'm doing in track or being with friends, I could put my finger on the Apple Watch and I could send you my heartbeat in real time. I'm like, dang, that's a pretty good salesman. Then connected to the emotional component of why an Apple Watch would actually do well for a father and a son who are oftentimes not in the same house. I'm traveling, he's doing his thing. So tying that emotion in, explaining why is the heart and the soul of transformational leadership. Now, not to say that the transaction part is bad. On the left-hand side, more management related, we call it situational leadership. Situational leadership means that I'm going to use the particular tool that I need in order to get the job done in the situation that I'm in. And you should have a bunch of different tools, but if you think about it, process or people should be the two tools that make it a little bit of an easier discussion. Here's the reason. This is why we're doing it. I need you to do this now. I don't need input and feedback. I need you to take care of this. That's transactional and to be used on occasion. Transformational is leadership, and we should be able to balance those in a nice, appropriate, and responsible way. You can't just have one tool. You have to have a deep tool in your toolbox. So let's keep building your toolbox in leadership. A couple more things that I feel in the qualities or characteristics of folks that have leadership as an ability is, first of all, vision, meaning they know where they're headed. They have a clear, concise understanding of the direction that they're going in. You know who gets vision extremely well? Geese. Geese. Geese know we're going north, and geese know we're going south, and they get it. With the size of a brain, about the size of a pea, to me, comically, geese are probably the best example of teamwork, communication, attitude, vision. You name it, they've got it, and they're geese. These days, as we see coming around Carroll County, they're flying through the air, and you hear them honking. You know what they're doing? They're honking because they're encouraging each other to continue to move forward. So the honk means go, keep going, you're doing awesome. Geese motivate each other. I don't know about you, but sometimes in the office places that I am blessed to work in, the motivating is not always motivating. It's more gossiping. It's more pointing out what somebody's doing wrong. It's, hey, let's stop doing it. That's not working. Geese don't do that. They're always moving forward, and they know the direction that they're going in. Now, another component of geese, which I find is interesting in vision, is that the goose at the front kind of is a drag of a job at that point because they're taking the butt of all the wind, but all the other geese fall behind. Their jobs are done easier because of the way that they've created a world-class team. They use drafting, kind of like NASCAR, but geese, by nature, by the way that they fly, help each other out by making it easier for the person behind them. What about in your business? What about in your world, or in your office, or in your department, or in your home? Is there the, hey, that's not my job, and kick it to the next person whose job becomes more difficult because the person in front didn't take ownership of their job? If we're passing the buck and sending it back, at some point, somebody's doing a heck of a lot of work. And you know what those people do? They leave. Because there's this thought, why should I be doing more work than others who seem to not either one, take ownership of their job, or two, leadership is not holding them accountable for the work that they're doing. So when we look at vision, geese know the direction that they're going in. They divide the responsibilities equally so they're all helping each other out. And by the way that they fly as a world-class team, they fly through the air 71% more efficiently than any other bird in any other species. They figured it out. They have a buddy system that you'll never really see one goose flying. They've always got somebody that they're hanging out with to make sure that they are safe and okay. So geese have a natural support system. They encourage each other. They work on each other's efficiencies. They know the direction that they're going in, and they're geese. And we have a brain 50 times larger, and what I'm advocating here is extremely difficult in any workplace in America. The one thing of many that is key to effective leadership is to know where we're going. Oftentimes in an audience that I'm speaking to on a whatever conference, convention, or whatever, I ask everybody to close their eyes and where they're seated point to north. And on the count of three, everybody points to north, and you have some folks going this way, and some folks going this way, and some folks going this way, and some folks going that way. And it's comical because they have no idea where north is. And then I take out my phone, and I push the compass, and I figure out where north is compared to where we're seated, and I let everybody know that this is the direction of north. And then I ask them to close their eyes again, and on the count of three, point to north. And it's amazing what occurs. There's a transformation, actually. There's an intention of energy in the room where everybody on the count of three points to north. They all know the direction that they're going in. And that intention or that knowledge of where we're headed creates a wonderful culture to work in. Question: what's your true north? With the businesses that are online this morning, and again, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule and to have an extra cup of coffee. What's your true north? What is the vision of your organization? And does every employee that works with you, not for you, but with you, do they all know what that direction is? Is it only a mission statement or a vision statement that's on a board somewhere in a hallway? Or is it something that is reinforced every day in an email that's sent out? Do you have huddles on a daily basis to discuss what we're doing today so everybody knows the direction that we're going in? Or do we wing it and hope for the best? And to me, hope is not a business plan. Intention is a business plan, and it starts with vision. So making notes to yourself, review your mission statement and your vision statement, because some of them might have come out in 1997 or 2002, and we're in 2019 right now. And to me, I love this year because next year's 2020. And if there's a term about vision that resonates well, it's 2020 vision. So take this year to reinvest in the direction that you're going in as we move into next year, and ensure that everybody's in alignment, everybody knows what's expected, everybody takes ownership for what they have, and everybody understands that we're here in this together. Because believe me, if geese can do this and they do it really well, we should be able to do it too. Don't you agree? The second component in relationship to leadership is a term called integrity. I'm going to circle back to this one in just a couple minutes. I'm going to move to the third one called compassion. Compassion. Leaders, by nature, have a sense of empathy or compassion for others. I feel like Marco Rubio for just a second. Let me do another impression. Years ago, I was in the hotel hospitality tourism industry. I moved back from California to take on a job in a hotel. And the general manager, as I came on board as the director of sales, sat me down in his office. And he walked me through all the expectations of what somebody in a director of sales job would have. And I was compliant and I understood what was necessary. So I was good with that. And at the end, he said, hey, do you have any questions? And similar that was asked to me earlier with Jill, is there one thing that I should be learning? So I asked that question. What's the one thing that I should be working on or learning when it comes to my role as a director of sales? And Bill Mitchell was his name. He smiled, he nodded, and he says, you know what I want you to do, Mr. Kennedy? I'm like, no. And he goes, I want you to make beds. Long pause. And I said, I'm sorry, what? And he goes, I want you to make beds. As a director of sales of this hotel, you're required to put heads in beds. So your success is relating to putting hotel rooms to be occupied with people that are sleeping here. And that's important because if housekeepers don't have rooms to clean, housekeepers don't have jobs. I'm like, wow, guilt trip. Okay, I get it. I want to make sure that I'm doing the right thing by making sure the beds are there and heads are in beds. But explain to me the make beds. And he says, good. So when you walk down a hallway and you walk and see a door open and a housekeeper in that hotel room making a bed, don't walk by like most people would. Walk in, introduce yourself, and help that housekeeper make a bed. And I'm like, okay. And he goes, do you have any other questions? And I said, I'm kind of hesitant to ask because I'm thinking I'll probably have latrine duty next. So I'll pass and just hold off on the making beds thing. So about 2 or 3 days later, this would be a Wednesday or a Thursday of my first week there, I thought I will break out of my office and I'll walk down the hallway and I'll make a bed with a housekeeper. So I walked into a room. There was a woman with her name badge on. Her name was Edna. You never forget your first bed, I guess. Mine was Edna. So I introduced myself. I said, I'm John Kennedy. She goes, I know who you are. And I'm like, okay. She goes, can I help you? And I said, well, actually, I was hoping to help you. I was wondering if I could help you make that bed. And she goes, why? And I said, I don't know. I'm not sure, but I know that Bill Mitchell, our general manager, suggested I make beds. So she smiled and she showed me the elements of making the hospitality tourism bed, a hotel bed. And I remember once or twice that happened. Like, no, not that way. I'm like, okay, this is some sort of hotel hazing. I'm getting worked over by a bunch of housekeepers, but okay, I'll take it. I'll pay my dues. I'll be fine, right? So I go back to my office on a Wednesday or a Thursday, and Friday afternoon, my first week there, Bill Mitchell comes down to the office. Mr. Kennedy, Mr. Mitchell, you making beds this week? I said, I did. I made a bed with Edna earlier this week. And he goes, good, make 10 more. I'm like, man, it's like penance. So over the next week or two, I started making more and more beds with housekeepers. And boy, did I learn a lot of stuff. Those housekeepers who had been at that hotel for at least 10 years or more. And there were 7 or 8 of them. So there was hundreds of years of experience in that hotel. I'd only been there a week. And for me to think within a week or two or a month or two or even a year or two that I would be able to do better than what these housekeepers knew would be silly and dumb. Bill Mitchell taught me the art of making beds. And it goes right to the heart of compassion. Because when I started to learn about these women, I learned about their struggles in life and their kids. One of them, this was the first son, 4 generations that was going to go to college, and she was working at that hotel to ensure that she could afford for her kid to go to college. I'm like, wow, that's big, that's heavy, that's amazing. Jesse's another housekeeper. Bless you, by the way. Just wanted to do that. Can't help but not do that, right? So Jesse had 3 kids and needed a little extra money. So I opted to help Jessie out and get her some extra side work on some other things that I was doing just to make sure that she had her needs met. And I really started to learn about these unbelievably amazing, wonderful women that were housekeepers. And what oftentimes we do in life, and I'm going to be straight with you, is that we assign value to somebody based on their job. So when we go to these networking events that are out there all the time, oftentimes in American culture, different than others that I work with throughout the world, but in American culture, hi, my name is, and the next question that somebody asks you in a networking event is what? What do you do? We put value to somebody's job. And if I can't get something out of that role that they have, then I'm probably going to go, oh, okay, and move on. Bill Mitchell wanted me to crush that to the core. He wanted me to know that if you think just a housekeeper, you're not in the right business, and you're certainly not a leader, because these women could tell you everything you would ever need to know about successful customer experience, how we can improve things, and you just don't walk in and go, hi, I'm the new director of sales. So you should instantly respect me, and you should instantly tell me how we could do things better. It has to be earned over time, making beds. And in about 3 or 4 months, knock on the door. I'm like, hello? And they came in. Mr. Kennedy. I'm like, no, I'm John. My dad is Mr. Kennedy. I wanted to let you know something. I'm like, what? Well, in the morning, we have a lot of folks calling the front desk to get towels delivered to their room in the morning. I'm like, okay, that's kind of weird. Why is that happening? Well, because the pool guy actually doesn't put towels out at the pool. So hotel guests go to the pool. They have no towels to dry off. They go to their room, get their towels and dry off, and then they're looking for new towels in the morning. So if you could, director of sales guy, let the lifeguard know that we need hotel towels at the pool, that would be important. You know what I think was lacking? Was that the lifeguard didn't know why towels at the pool mattered, and by them not doing their job, how it made it more difficult for the next people down the line who are getting a phone call at 7 in the morning asking somebody that needs to be out of the door at 7:45, I need towels in my room. You're not staffed appropriately for that. We're reacting, and guests leave that hotel negative experience that I had to wait 20 minutes to get towels out of the shower because I used them at the pool the night before. So you see this trickle down part. And we see why we need to explain somebody's job and making sure that they take ownership. And it all came down to making beds. I'll tell you what, in the 3 years that I was there, the best ideas to enhance the customer experience were housed in the heads of the housekeepers. They knew everything. And for often, they would never say anything because, hey, I'm just a housekeeper. So in leadership, we want to ensure that we never forget the component of compassion. We also know the direction that we're going in, and a key component, a cornerstone, if you think about it, is the importance of integrity. I read a book called The Integrity Advantage. And ironically, I thought it was an awesome book, so I stole things from it, which is kind of funny that you steal something from a book called The Integrity Advantage. But it listed the 10 qualities or characteristics that effective, successful leaders have when it comes to the importance of integrity. And I want to share this with you. Hopefully you have copies of this as well. If you haven't, go online. You could look and download the workbook. I would imagine that you'll all have access to that. So, but you know that little things count, that by this one small thing of making beds, it can make such a big difference in the way that people approach their work and their life. By picking up a piece of trash as you walk in the building and putting in the garbage can allows you to say, that's all of our responsibilities, not just the janitor. Because oftentimes we would call someone and say, hey, there's some garbage out front, and they're quietly going, and you walked right by it and didn't pick it up. You took more time finding somebody else to do something that you could have easily done yourself. And that goes a long way when it comes to integrity. You find the white when others see gray. God gave me 2 hands to make decisions correctly. It's right or it's wrong. And folks with integrity have that bright white light that's right down the middle of it. Folks without integrity, yeah, but, and they really swim in the world of gray. It's either right or it's not. Folks in integrity, folks that are strong leaders, understand the value of integrity in their toolbox. Another component of the integrity advantage, quite frankly, one of my favorites, is if you mess up, you fess up. You don't blame others for something that happened. You're quick to say, my bad, or I own this, or at least I own part of this. Biblically, we say sometimes we spend so much time pointing out a splinter in someone else's eye when there's a log in ours. We want to make sure that I own a part of the problem, therefore I have to take some responsibility. So if you mess up as a leader, fess up and say, hey, you know what? I didn't see that coming. That was an oversight on my behalf. Let's go ahead and fix it and move forward instead of blaming others for something that we may have been part of. So that's a good one. You create a culture of trust and you keep your word. If you're a person of integrity, if I say I'll call you back by 4, I call you back by 4. If I say I'll get with you tomorrow, I'll follow up with you tomorrow. Folks with integrity and leadership, if they say they're going to do something, they do it. And I'm going to speak now to those that are new in a leadership role. Because your thought might be, I have yet to really earn the right to be a leader. I'm in a position where somebody that I'm leading has been in the company longer. Sound familiar? I'm in a position of leadership where somebody that I'm leading is older than me. Sound familiar? So oftentimes we have barriers or hurdles in our leadership role, whether it's emerging or in existing leadership. And for me, the only real way to overcome that is to say what you're going to do and do it consistently for a year. They might not like you. They might think that you're not experienced enough. You might be younger. They could tell you all the reasons why you might not work, but what they can't take away from you is what you said you were going to do and then you committed to doing. So for those that are early in their roles of leadership, that's a huge tool that can go into your toolbox. Say what you're going to do and do it. You care about the greater good, which is the bigger picture, which is the team effort, that by me doing this one activity, this feeds into the greater success of the organization. I work with organizations throughout the world where we talk about a culture of ownership, where each employee knows what job they have, what part they play, and what part they play in the bigger picture of the organization. So integrity is absolutely integral, I guess, to success in leadership. You're honest but modest. The next one I think is interesting. You act like you're being watched because you are. I come from a family of 9 kids. We wanted fairness, that if somebody's doing something, that it should be fair that others should be doing that too, or not doing that. Holding ourselves to a consistent standard. So you're always being watched. People are going to watch your behavior, your actions, your words. My son remembers things I said when he was 6. Hey, Dad, but yeah, back when, remember when you said this? I'm like, my golly, Ben, let it go. But he does. They remember. So you always have to be in a way on, precise, appropriate, professional, and base that in a concept of integrity. You hire integrity, and last but not least, you stay the course. Meaning that it's not something that you have as a hat that you put on at work, and I'm a person of integrity at work, but when I'm out on the roads here, I'm a different person altogether. We, folks of integrity, folks in leadership, this is how we are through and through. It becomes a component of your DNA. It is who you are as a person. Attitude, vision, compassion, integrity. You're starting to hear those qualities and those characteristics of discovering that leader within you. And we've all been blessed to have these components hardwired into our lives and ourselves. We might have gotten out of the habit of utilizing them or leaning on them, but they're there. And this title is allowing you to go back and discover some of those things that you used to do that you forgot, some of those things that you've never done at all that you need to begin to, and to celebrate the things that you're already doing well, to go, hey, seems like I've got what it takes in influence to be able to be an effective, successful leader, whether it's emerging or as an existing leader. As we look to other qualities and characteristics of leadership, another component is motivating others. That's the transformational leadership part. I discussed earlier that transformational leaders tap into the emotion of folks to be able to drive, influence, and change. They're not just telling people what to do, they're seeing the outcomes and explaining why and buying into their emotion. I'm a values kind of guy. I like to know people's values. I like to know what drives or makes them tick. So if I have an employee that has a value of family, I'll ask about their family. I just got back from Indianapolis last week, and there's a gentleman named Dan Waller. Dan's going to celebrate 50 years of marriage on May 31st. 50 years of marriage. I can honestly say I will not have that milestone in my life. And I was in awe of Dan. To commit to someone for that amount of life is amazing to me. So I made a note in my calendar on my phone that on May 31st, I'm going to make sure to call Dan Waller and let him know happy 50th anniversary, Dan, because he values family and his relationship with his wife over all aspects in life and business. And when he centers his attention on that value, a lot of other great things happen. Another friend of mine, Vance, works for Ferguson. He celebrates 30 years of working for Ferguson. He has an anniversary. Last year, when he had his anniversary, he told me about it. I'm like, oh, when's your anniversary? January 21st. I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. So how did it go? Nobody said happy anniversary. Been working here 29 years. Not one person realized it was my day that I started 29 years ago. And I'm like, geez, Vance, sucks being you. But boy, that's not going to happen this year. So on the 30th anniversary, on January 21st, I made sure to say to Vance, happy anniversary. Let me talk to you for just a second about the importance of anniversaries in the workplace. Employees know what day they started. They show up to work that day, and they know this day 7 years ago I began working here. And if they're the only one that remembers that, that's a shame. Make it a point. Write that one down. If you're in an ownership level, if you're in a leadership level, take a moment to jot down the anniversary dates of the people that you have influence over or are responsible for or you work with. Make a note of it. Set it in your phone, on your iPhone. It'll take you no more than 10 minutes to propagate your entire phone with anniversaries of your employees and put a little when to do this every year and a reminder a week out and reminder a day out. And there you go. That employee walks in. You walk up and say, hey, I just wanted to say good morning. I wanted to say welcome. 9 years ago today, we hired you. And I have to tell you, your loyalty and commitment to the company for 9 years has not been overlooked. And I also want to let you know that we appreciate the work that you do here. And that one thing can have such a dramatic impact on an employee who at that point feels valued, which we'll talk about as we finish up here this morning. So these all tie into a component of motivation. Interestingly enough, the time that we realize what people value is on the way out the door. We do it in an exit interview. Why are you leaving? Well, because of this. You're like, shoot, oh man, we should have done that earlier. Well, you didn't. So I did some research and I studied about evaluations of employee exit interviews, and there were 3 top reasons why employees leave companies. 1, delegation. I was no better than I was when I was hired here. There is an interest in having folks learn new things. Don't underestimate the value of delegating in the workplace. Secondly is appreciated. I don't feel appreciated for the work that I do. So we want to appreciate them for the work that they do and give them new skill sets. And thirdly is communication. Do I know what's going on? Do people tell me on a consistent basis what's happening in the workplace? I'm going to give you a quick story. Where I worked before at the hotel, there was an office assistant named Jennifer. Jennifer came in. Her job was to write up contracts and answer phones and do most of the administrative work in a fairly busy work environment in a hospitality sales industry. Jen was single. That's not gossip. It's just part of the story. And she would go out on dates, different people. And on Monday, she'd come in and the women in the office would chat about Jen's weekend dalliances and who she hung out with and whatnot. I always found it kind of interesting. And I always wanted to know, what was the restaurant that the guy took you to? Because I could give a thumbs up or a thumbs down based on the restaurant choice. And one day she said Demimo's. We're in the Baltimore, Washington area here. So Demimo's is an awesome restaurant in Little Italy in Baltimore. And I'm like, wow, must be nice going to Demimo's because that place ain't cheap. What'd you have for dinner? And she said what she had for dinner. And she said, but we went across the street and we had Vaccaro's cannoli. I'm like, wow, Jen, that sounds like an awesome weekend. Yep, the cannoli at Vaccaro's was really, really yummy. So I made a note in the back of my head. My office assistant, Jennifer, likes cannoli from Vaccaro's. Not a big deal. I made a note. Months later, we went out to dinner. We didn't go to Demimo's because we can't afford it. We went to Sabatini's, and it was good. But we went across the street to Vaccaro's afterwards and had cappuccino and cannoli, and they actually were quite good. So I boxed up a couple, and I took them home, and I brought them into the office on Monday for her, and I wrote a little note at the top that said Breakfast of Champions because I thought that was kind of cool. And she came into the office, and she sees this box with the label from Vaccaro's on it, and she sees my handwriting, which is distinguishable, and she looks up at me, and she goes, you remembered that? And she opened it up, and there were 3 cannolis in it, and I said, yeah. You went all the way up there just for that? Have you ever been in a situation where if you lie a little bit, you could get a lot of traction? I was in that moment where I had to realize, man, I could bend the truth a bit, but I got to be a man of integrity, because we talked about that. I said, nah, no, we were across the street. I saw that we were near Vaccaro's. I'd never been there before, so I got you a cup of cannoli. Those little things matter. And if you are focused on the transaction of the day, if you're focused on the tasks of the day, if you're focused on the day-to-day things that need to get done, you may not be taking the time to sit back for just a moment and see or hear or listen and understand that there's far more depth to people than what they bring to their workplace. Families, kids, soccer, basketball, faith, fun, fitness, values of honesty or trust or integrity, or just a cup of cannoli from Vaccaro's. So that's interesting. Jen, over the course of 2 years, started to show a little bit of a challenge in her work ethic. Was showing up to work late, a couple of those types of things that show that an employee is maybe taking a half a step back from her commitment. She would, on occasion, when brides would come in, she would interview the bride to find out what day they had on their calendar for their wedding. And if our hotel had the date available, she would then turn them on to Kathy, our wedding specialist. So one day, I couldn't help but notice that Jen, in talking to this bride, really connected with her. And when the bride said, "Is it okay if you help me plan my wedding?" Jen's response, very telling, she said, "I'm just the office assistant." We talked about this before with housekeepers, right? If an employee utilizes the word just in a description of who they are, what they're really saying is, I have far more to offer for this organization, but all they see in me is just what I do. And we want to make sure that we are feeding them and growing them beyond the capabilities of what they currently have. So when we look at leadership, a second component is delegation. So at that evening, as Jen was leaving the office, I said, "Hey, I couldn't help but notice that you said to that bride that you're just an office assistant." I said, "Jen, you're much more than that. You used to work in the banquets department, so you know about a good event. You've come back on weekends and you've been to friends' weddings and you talk about how awesome they are." I said, I tell you what, I know that you're challenged in your workplace as an office assistant, and what I'd love to do is I'd love to challenge you to be able to maybe be a wedding planner. How would you like to call that young lady and tell her tonight that if she comes and has her wedding at our property, that you will be her wedding planner? How do you feel about that? And she's like, "Well, maybe you should ask Kathy, the wedding specialist." And I said, "I will. But for now, I'm making a judgment call. I'd like you to call her up and I'd like you to plan that wedding for her." And she got excited. I then went to Kathy at the end of the day and I said, "Hey, I'm talking to Jen. I'm thinking that maybe she could, on occasion, take a wedding off of your plate. You're very busy. I'd love for her to be able to be challenged in the workplace. I think she's a natural fit as a wedding planner here, and I want to try to be able to get her to commit more to staying here." And Kathy's response was, "Good, she can take them all. I hate this job." Which I thought, man, I've lost track of my team. So Jen became our wedding specialist. Kathy moved on to become the assistant general manager. That weekend, Jennifer went out and secret shopped all the hotels in the area that compete against us for weddings, came in on Monday and had a presentation of why we suck at weddings. And it was fascinating. And the general manager and the food and beverage director and everybody sat down, and she made this professional presentation in a wonderful new outfit about what we need to do to enhance our ability to serve the needs of our guests in the wedding side. And she tripled the sales of weddings in 1 year. Amazing. An office assistant who was showing up to work late and making mistakes on contracts literally changes overnight, and the next week becomes somebody leaning in, owning a job, feeling challenged, feeling purposeful, feeling valued. And you're hearing a theme now, aren't you? It's the emotional side of the work. The tasks of wedding planning, kind of arduous. The connecting of somebody to say, "This is why I believe you're best fit for that job," is vital, because 41% on the way out the door of employees who said, "I'm leaving," 41% of them said, "I'm leaving because I'm no longer challenged in my workplace," and they go find a job. It's not about the money. It's about the purpose and the challenge and me feeling valued within the workplace. 19% left because they felt that they weren't appreciated for the work that they do. So if I'm, again, putting tools in your leadership toolbox, certainly, how am I delegating the responsibilities of the work that needs to get done to the right people, and not always the one that do it already well? Jennifer doesn't do it at all. I challenged her to step up and take on a new responsibility because managing to people's strengths to me is smart, but it's the easy route. Leading to somebody to enhance their skill sets is challenging. Manage to the strengths, lead to the improvements. And what we see statistically here on the screen is that nearly 60% actually on the nose, are leaving because I'm no longer challenged in the work or appreciated for the work that I do. So in this economy, as the job market is such, where it's difficult to find new people, you might want to focus on keeping the people you have, because if they leave, it's tough to find new people. You want to have a culture of retention. And if you're in a leadership role of influence, emerging or existing, we want to ensure that we're retaining the top talent that we have. And a way to retain them is to find out why they're leaving. And on the screen is 60% of the reason why they're leaving. So heck, if I were you, I'd throw some opportunity and some investment of time into delegating folks to be able to improve their skill sets and appreciating them for the work that they do. Last but not least is communication. Nearly 70% of turnover in the workplace is happening because folks don't know what's going on. How do we effectively communicate? Is there a huddle on a daily basis? Is there a newsletter that goes out on a monthly basis? Are there meetings that we have to allow people to not only understand what we're doing and how we're doing it, but why are we driving that? And for those that are on this screen today, thank you again for investing your time in this. But you might be sitting here going, I'm trying to learn skills, but I'm not in a leadership role yet. I get that. I value that. And I'd want you to be able to say, I took a webinar with the little man who speaks quick, and he suggested that these are some things that we can implement into our workplace to be able to drive retention and to drive attraction. There's a small community around here. People hear about good companies that treat people well. People will leave organizations that they're getting paid a certain dollar amount, but will leave because they feel valued and go somewhere else for equal and sometimes less pay because of the way that they feel. This cup of coffee this morning made to me in the Starbucks in Eldersburg by my friend Tracy. Tracy was working for a local business here in the community. I won't say who. She moved out of Starbucks over to there for a job opportunity, which was going to pay her more money, but how she was treated, the way that she thought it was going to be, her involvement, her engagement, and whatnot, had her come back to here. I'm not touting Starbucks. I'm not doing that. But what I am saying is she feels differently and better where she used to work. She gave it a try. She tried something new, but went back to the place that she worked because of the way that she felt, to the degree of making less money. Don't always think it's about money. If you want to be able to retain and attract top talent in Carroll County, Maryland, and beyond, there would be wisdom in determining what part you play in the Cannoli Factor. How do I motivate people, create a culture where they feel respected and valued and understood? There are 3 basic needs that people want. I want to be heard, I want to be valued, and I want to be respected. And if you're able to create a culture that drives that, by being heard, I'm understood, by being valued, I am absolutely feeling purposeful, and by driving be respected, I feel like I'm an equal partner. If you're able to, in your leadership role or in your influence within your workplace, feed these 3 things to your team on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, and the outcomes at the bottom are to be understood, purposeful, and an equal partner. If you're going to feed that to your team, you're going to grow your team, because we grow what we feed. And if you feed fear, you'll grow fear. If you feel distrust, you'll grow distrust. If you feel less than and feed that, then they'll feel less than. But if you feed people these things on this screen right now, not only will they stay a little longer, which is helpful, but they'll tell other people, I like where I work. I like it because of the way that I feel. I like the emotional connection. I like my leader. I like the fact that we know what's going on, the direction we're going in. I feel valued in the workplace. I get new skills given to me as an opportunity to improve, and they invest in me. And if you invest in them, they'll return that investment greatly back to you if you feed them what's on the screen right here. As we finish up on our last slide, I really talk about the roles and responsibilities as a management-driven issue And for some of us, we're very good at the roles and the responsibilities of the process side of the equation, the task-oriented side of the equation. And then as we move through this into deeper elements of leadership, we talk about it in relationship to relationships. I have a good relationship with people. You could have great relationships with people, but if they're not respecting you, it's just a great relationship. A friend of mine I work with overseas takes me out golfing every time I visit in Bermuda. Craig's his name. You'll never know him, so I can use his name. Craig takes me golfing because he wants to impress me. He's a big man on campus. John, come we'll play golf. And I watch him play golf. And he cheats. He cheats. He rolls the ball. He changes the score. And what really bothered me, he would go online and like register his score on the PGA golf app. And he'd score an 84. And I'm like, dude, you shot a 97, you lying sack of crap. I tell you what, Craig, that's not cool. So I have a good relationship with Craig. I wouldn't trust him with business in a heartbeat because I don't respect him. So don't be fooled that because you might think that people like you, that means that they respect you. To drive respect level leadership, is to follow the guidelines that we've given you here today for your toolbox. Respect is driven by integrity, compassion, vision, an understanding of people's values, a positive attitude, a way that we react and respond to things in an appropriate and professional way. It's driven through communication. It's driven through motivation and delegation. It's certainly driven through appreciation. Appreciating somebody for showing up to work on the day that they've been there for 9 years and you letting them know, welcome today. You've been here 9 years today. I didn't want that day to go by. Just wanted to let you know I appreciate you being here and the work that you've done and the loyalty that you've shown to this company. And for you looking at me right now as an owner of a business, if you haven't written that one down, you haven't learned a thing today. Write that one down. That one takeaway, as was asked earlier from Jill, can be a huge one to the way that the culture of the workplace embraces their ownership of their job. And you know what they'll start doing? They won't start showing up to work because they have to. They'll start to show up to work because they want to, out of respect for you. And if you build a culture of want, if you build a culture where employees show up to work because they want to, the customer experience is better, the teamwork is better, the morale is better, the retention is better, and it's based on leadership and it's based on respect. So I am fortunate, lucky, and blessed to have been invited here to spend a short, quick hour to talk about the toolbox of leadership and discovering that leader within you. And if you've liked what you've witnessed just today, we have created in partnership with Carroll Community College and Advantage C an entire leadership academy. 8 different modules of leadership, inspiration, innovation, change management, conflict, teamwork. All of those things that you would ever want that you've learned today could be brought to you in the Leadership Academy. So keep an eye out for that. In spring of 2019, we're going to unveil the Leadership Academy through Advantage C to give you and your leadership team and your organization the competitive edge when it comes to your culture, your team, and your workplace. Invest in your people. They'll return that investment tenfold if they feel that they are being fed. So I appreciate your time and attention. And we open it up now to questions and answers. And I'll turn that back over to Michelle and to Jill. Thanks for your time and attention. Have a wonderful, great day.
John, I just can't thank you enough for that presentation today. It was so full of nuggets of great information. I know I want to go back into the archives later and really just immerse myself in it, because each slide was packed full of great information, and it's the kind of information that we can apply. And I would just encourage us all, go back to our own workplace and figure out what in our workplace is making a bed, right? How can we form relationships with people that we work with that maybe we haven't invested in? And what can we learn from those folks? And how can we turn those relationships into just a deeper level of respect? And then all those issues that John hit on, the retention, the productivity, the morale, we'll see the benefit in all of those improving.
Absolutely.
And again, keep your eyes open for the new Leadership Academy that's going to be coming up. So if there are any questions out there, we can address them at this time. Michelle, did you have any comments?
Well, I'm going to be more like geese. I'll just say that. And I'm hungry for cannolis. No, John, that was great. We talk about leadership all the time. You had so much information. I love your stories. They resonate when you tell a story. You remember it. Remembering anniversaries is super important. I think it was great.
Any questions from the audience? I have ample time to be able to field any questions that are relevant, and if not, yep, thanks. So yeah, oh, thank you. So technical glitches. I'm happy to field any questions, but sometimes this was a water hose of information, and you're like, I'm just processing all the stuff that you gave me. I'm kind of overwhelmed right now. But if you do have questions, feel free to contact Advantage C with Michelle and with Libby, and they'll direct me to respond to you, whether it's an email or possibly even a conference call to set up to talk about some questions and answers. I'm happy to help in any way I can to serve the community that I have lived in for over 20 years. I'm fortunate to be here at home in Maryland and working with folks that are right there in the community. And it allows me to go to bed at night in my own bed. So thank you for that too.
Thanks so much, John.
So, John, we do have one question. I'm going to read it to you, if that's okay, and I can read it a couple times. As an aspiring leader, when looking at your true north and vision, do we base our vision around the next step or our ultimate goal?
Can you read it again?
As an aspiring leader, when looking at your true north and vision, do we base our vision around the next step or our ultimate goal?
Absolutely profound and awesome question. So when I work with organizations on strategic planning, which is really a little bit of what we're talking about here, we do talk about what's next, but then we do look at the long term. I call it moving mountains. So moving mountains would be the big picture, long-term goal that we're looking to accomplish, and then we break that down into smaller pieces. What would be next would be within the month, and that's a pebble. After that, 3 months would be a rock. And something that would happen over the course of a year would be a boulder. And if you connect the what's next with the pebbles and the rocks and the boulders, and you commit to 2 each, don't do a lot, do 2 pebbles, 2 rocks, 2 boulders on your company's change management that will have immediate impact in either driving bottom line, profitability, employee engagement, customer experience, sales, you name it, whatever that metric or measurement is. If you're able to put 2 pebbles, 2 rocks, and 2 boulders together, 6 total goals that are moving in your true north of the outcome, which is moving the mountain, you'll find that you'll get both next steps and the outcome all at once. So in the Leadership Academy, in the strategic planning part of the Leadership Academy online program, we do bring strategic planning to the forefront, and we describe exactly that process of moving mountains through pebbles, rocks, and boulders. So great question, and that's the answer.
Great, thank you. So I think in the interest of time, and we'd like to get everyone out of here at 10 a.m. If you have any other questions, our email is info@advantage-c.com. Feel free to ask any questions. We will send this out you'll get an email tomorrow. You'll have the video, and we can send out the PowerPoint as well.
We'll see you next month. Thanks so much for joining us.
Bye.